Admiral Kang Wu stood at the window of his ship and looked out at the massive space station floating in the darkness. Nexus Prime was the biggest neutral meeting place in the galaxy. Today, it would host the most important meeting in 3,000 years. The station looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. Lights blinked along its surface like stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds were docked at the station. Some ships looked like crystal formations that sparkled in the starlight. Others were dark and angular like pieces of black metal. A few glowed with strange colors that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Kang Wu had been an admiral for 20 years, but he had never seen so many different alien ships in one place. Each ship represented a different species, a different way of thinking, and a different level of technology. Most of them were much older than humanity and considered themselves superior in every way. Dr. Park Sue walked up beside him. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent most of her life studying alien biology and culture. She was the first human to make peaceful contact with the Alterian Empire 5 years ago. "They all came," Park Sue said quietly. "I didn't think they would all agree to meet with us." "They're scared," Kang Wu replied. "They don't understand us, and that makes them nervous." Behind them, Captain Lee Hana checked her equipment one more time. She was younger than the other two, but she had already earned a reputation as one of the best military minds in the human fleet. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed. "The diplomatic shuttle is ready, sir," Lee Hana reported. "We can dock with the station whenever you give the order." Kang Wu nodded. Their ship, the Soul's Promise, was a standard diplomatic vessel. It was clean and efficient, but nothing special compared to the alien ships around them. That was exactly what they wanted the aliens to think. The human delegation transferred to the shuttle and flew toward the station. As they got closer, Kang Wu could see more details of the alien ships. The Alterian vessels were made of some kind of living crystal that grew in impossible geometric patterns. The Vex ships looked like they had been grown rather than built, with smooth organic curves and no visible seams. The ethereal ships were barely visible, like ghosts made of light and shadow. The most impressive ships belonged to the Corvan Dominion. They were massive warships covered in weapons and armor plating. Each one could destroy a small planet if needed. The Corvans had built their entire civilization around war and conquest. The shuttle docked with Nexus Prime, and the human delegation made their way through corridors filled with aliens. Kang Wu had seen pictures and videos before, but being around so many different species in person was overwhelming. The air recycling system worked hard to accommodate different atmospheric needs, creating a mix of smells that was both fascinating and unpleasant. They entered the main meeting chamber, a huge circular room with seats arranged in tiers around a central speaking area. Each section was designed for a different species, with appropriate atmosphere, gravity, and lighting. The human section was small and positioned near the bottom, showing their low status in galactic politics. Chancellor Veltara of the Alterian Empire stood at the center of the room. She was tall and thin, with skin that looked like blue crystal. When she moved, light reflected off her surface in beautiful patterns. Her voice rang out clear and musical, translated by universal communicators so everyone could understand. "We gather today because of a new presence in our galaxy," Veltara began. "The species called humans have emerged from their small corner of space and begun to interact with the established civilizations. Some view this as an opportunity. Others see it as a threat." Murmurs rose from different sections of the chamber. Kang Wu could feel hundreds of alien eyes focused on him and his small team. Many of those eyes showed suspicion or outright hostility. War Commander Thok of the Corvan Dominion stood up next. He was a massive creature covered in thick armor-like skin. Scars from countless battles marked his face and arms. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. "The humans are aggressive and unpredictable," Thok declared. "They expand too quickly and ask too many questions. They do not respect the traditional boundaries that have kept peace in this galaxy for millennia." High Mystic Zephyra of the Ethereals floated above her section, her form shifting between solid and translucent. Her mental voice reached everyone directly, bypassing the need for sound. "The humans possess an unusual mental pattern," she communicated. "Their thoughts are chaotic but creative. They solve problems in ways we do not expect. This makes them dangerous to predict or control. Finally, Hive speaker Vexon of the Vex Collective spoke with the voice of billions. The Vex were a species that shared a single group mind. Individual Vex were more like cells in a larger organism than separate beings. The humans reproduce rapidly and consume resources at an alarming rate, Vexon stated. They will disrupt the careful balance we have maintained for 3,000 years. Something must be done before they become too powerful to contain. When it was time for the human delegation to speak, Kang Wu walked to the center of the chamber. He felt very small, surrounded by so many advanced alien civilizations. But he kept his back straight and his voice steady. "We came here to talk about peace and cooperation," Kang Wu said. "Humanity has no desire for conflict with any of your species. We want to trade, to learn, and to contribute to the galactic community." Dr. Park Soo joined him and activated a holographic display. It showed human colonies, trade routes, and scientific discoveries. Everything looked modest and reasonable. "We have much to offer," Park Soo explained. "Human medicine has cured diseases that have plagued other species for centuries. Our agricultural techniques can feed billions. Our engineering solutions have solved problems that seemed impossible." Captain Lee Hana stepped forward next. "We understand that our rapid expansion has caused concern. We are willing to negotiate boundaries and establish protocols for future growth. We seek understanding, not dominance." The aliens listened politely, but Kang Wu could see they were not impressed. Chancellor Veltara spoke for the group when the presentation ended. "Your species shows promise," she said with the tone of an adult speaking to a child, "but you are young and inexperienced. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have proven yourselves, you may earn a seat among the established powers." Other alien leaders nodded in agreement. They saw humanity as a minor irritation at best, a potential problem at worst. None of them considered humans to be serious rivals to their ancient civilizations. Kang Wu smiled calmly and reached for his communication device. The gesture was casual, but every alien in the room suddenly paid attention. Something in his expression had changed. "I appreciate your patience with our inexperience," Kang Wu said. "Before we continue these negotiations, I think it would be helpful if you had a better understanding of humanity's current capabilities." He activated his communicator with a simple touch. The device connected him instantly to a ship waiting in hyperspace several light years away. "Control, this is Admiral Kang Wu aboard Nexus Prime," he said clearly. "Tell the Bagdu she's cleared to approach the station. Standard diplomatic formation." The aliens assumed this was another small human vessel, probably a support ship or additional escort. They had seen human ships before during trade negotiations and border incidents. All of them had been unremarkable vessels, functional but primitive compared to alien technology. Chancellor Veltara looked slightly annoyed at the interruption. "Admiral, we did not authorize additional ships to approach this neutral station." "The Bekdu was always part of our delegation," Kang Wu replied smoothly. "She was simply waiting at a respectful distance until invited to join us." War Commander Thok growled his displeasure. "This is irregular. No military vessels are permitted near Nexus Prime during diplomatic meetings." "The Bekdu isn't exactly a military vessel," Captain Lee Hana said with a slight smile. "Though she does have some defensive capabilities." High Mystic Zephyra extended her psychic senses toward the approaching ship but found nothing. Whatever was coming remained hidden in hyperspace, invisible to even ethereal mental powers. Dr. Park Soo watched the alien reactions with scientific interest. None of them understood what was about to happen. They still thought of humanity as a minor species that had gotten lucky with a few technological advances. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The communication from the approaching ship came through clearly on Kang Wu's device. "Admiral, this is Commander Jin Tae aboard the Bekdu. We are beginning our approach to Nexus Prime. Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. Kang Wu nodded and closed the communication. He looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens, many of whom were already dismissing the humans and planning to end the meeting quickly. "I suggest we take a short break," Kang Wu announced. "I believe you'll want to see our ship when she arrives." None of the aliens understood why they would care about another small human vessel. But something in Admiral Kang Wu's expression made them uneasy. The confidence in his voice suggested that the humans knew something the aliens did not. In 30 minutes, everything would change. The first sign that something was wrong came from the station's navigation systems. Chief Controller Nixara, a blue-skinned Alterian who had run Nexus Prime's traffic control for 40 years, stared at her displays in confusion. "Gravitational anomaly detected," she announced to her mixed-species crew. "Something large is approaching from hyperspace." Around the station, every ship suddenly felt a strange pull. It was gentle at first, like a soft breeze in space where no breeze should exist. But it was unmistakably real. The massive Corvin warships, each weighing millions of tons, shifted slightly in their docking positions. War Commander Thok was in his private quarters when his ship's artificial gravity flickered. He had never felt anything like it in 3 decades of space warfare. He rushed to his bridge, where his crew was frantically checking their instruments. "Report," Thok demanded. "Unknown gravitational source approaching the station," his sensor officer replied. "The readings don't make sense, Commander. Whatever is coming is impossibly massive." On the bridge of an ethereal research vessel, High Mystic Zephyra extended her consciousness into space, trying to understand what was happening. What she found made her gasp, a sound that surprised her crew since ethereals rarely showed emotion. "The space around us is bending," she whispered. "Something is warping reality itself." Commander Jin Tae stood on the bridge of the Baekdu as his ship prepared to drop out of hyperspace. The bridge was enormous, more like a control center for a city than a starship. Windows stretched from floor to ceiling, giving a perfect view of space ahead. "Hyperspace transition in 60 seconds, announced the navigation officer. Lieutenant Nam Sori had been plotting courses for 15 years, but this was her first time bringing a Colossus-Class ship to a diplomatic meeting. "All stations report, ready," confirmed Chief Officer Park Do-hyun. The Baekdu was so large that it took several minutes for status reports to travel from one end of the ship to the other, even using the fastest communication systems. Jin Tae activated the ship-wide announcement system. His voice reached millions of people living and working throughout the massive vessel. "Attention all crew and civilians. We are approaching Nexus Prime for diplomatic contact. This is a historic moment for humanity. Everyone should be proud of what we have accomplished." In the engineering section of the Baekdu, Chief Engineer Kim Yuna monitored fusion reactors that were each the size of city blocks. The energy they produced could power entire planets. Today, they were running at only 5% capacity for the short journey to the station. "Reactor status nominal," she reported to her team of 300 engineers. "Artificial gravity, stable throughout all sections. Life support functioning perfectly." The Baekdu was not just a ship, it was a mobile civilization. Kim Yuna's engineering deck alone was 3 kilometers long and housed manufacturing plants that could build anything, from computer chips to smaller starships. The agricultural sections could feed 10 million people. The research laboratories contained technology that most alien species had never dreamed of. Dr. Song Minho worked in the Xenological Studies Department, preparing for contact with the alien species at Nexus Prime. His team had been studying intercepted alien communications for years, learning about their cultures and technologies. "The aliens think they understand us," he told his assistant, Dr. Huang Jina. "They've only seen our smallest ships. They have no idea what humanity is really capable of." "Will they be hostile when they realize the truth?" Huang Jina asked. "Some will be," Song Minho replied. "But most will be too shocked to react immediately. Fear and awe tend to paralyze decision-making." The Baekdu dropped out of hyperspace exactly where Commander Jin Tae had planned. For a few seconds, space around Nexus Prime remained normal. Then the massive ship began to appear. It started as a dark shadow against the stars, so large that it seemed impossible. The ship kept emerging from hyperspace, growing bigger and bigger, until the alien observers realized with growing horror that what they were seeing was real. Captain Oh Seung commanded one of the escort ships accompanying the Baekdu. His destroyer, the Hala, was considered a large vessel by human standards, but next to the Colossus-Class ship, it looked like a toy boat floating beside an aircraft carrier. "Nexus Prime Control, this is Captain Oh Seung of the human escort vessel Hala," he announced calmly. We are here to provide security for the diplomatic vessel Baekdu. The alien traffic controller could barely speak. Baekdu. That is your diplomatic vessel? Affirmative, Oh Sung replied. She's a Colossus-Class ship, designed for long-range exploration and colonization. We thought it would be appropriate for this meeting. On Nexus Prime, emergency alarms began to sound. Not because the human ship was threatening anyone, but because the station's computers could not process what they were detecting. The Baekdu was 15 kilometers long, 5 kilometers wide, and 3 kilometers tall. It was larger than most asteroids, and more massive than some moons. Chancellor Veltara rushed to the station's observation deck, her crystal skin flashing with colors that indicated extreme stress. What she saw through the transparent aluminum windows made her doubt her own senses. The Baekdu hung in space like a mountain that had learned to fly. Its hull was dark gray metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Rows of windows indicated multiple decks stacked on top of each other. Hangar bays along the sides were large enough to dock capital ships. Weapon emplacements dotted, the surface like stars, each one capable of destroying a city. But the most unsettling thing about the ship was how peaceful it looked. Despite its enormous size and obvious military capabilities, the Baekdu made no threatening moves. It simply existed in space, as calm and patient as a sleeping giant. War Commander Thok stared at the human ship through his own viewports. His heavy cruisers, which had intimidated entire star systems, suddenly seemed pathetically small. The main guns that could crack planets were tiny compared to the weapons visible on the Baekdu's hull. "How many crew does that ship carry?" asked his tactical officer. Thok tried to calculate the numbers in his head and gave up. "Millions," he said finally. "It would have to be millions." High Mystic Zephyra attempted to scan the human vessel with her most advanced psychic abilities. What she discovered sent shockwaves through the ethereal collective consciousness. The ship didn't just contain millions of human minds. They were all working together in perfect coordination, like a single organism with millions of parts. "Impossible," she whispered. "No species has ever achieved that level of mental unity without losing individual identity." Hive speaker Vexon of the Vex Collective was equally stunned. The Vex prided themselves on being the only species that could function as a true collective intelligence. But the humans seemed to have achieved something even more sophisticated: voluntary cooperation on a massive scale without sacrificing personal freedom. "This changes everything," Vexon announced to the Vex fleet. "The humans are not what we thought they were." Back in the diplomatic chamber, Admiral Kang Wu watched the alien reactions with satisfaction. Through the chamber's windows, they could all see the Baekdu hanging in space like a monument to human engineering. "Ladies, gentlemen, and respected beings," Kang Wu announced to the silent chamber. "Allow me to properly introduce the Baekdu. She is humanity's first Colossus-Class ship, designed for deep space exploration and colonization." Dr. Park Soo activated her holographic display again, but this time it showed the true scale of human space operations. Colonies on thousands of worlds, industrial complexes that could build ships like the Baekdu, research stations pushing the boundaries of science and technology. "We apologize for any confusion," Park Soo said with a slight smile. "Our previous presentations may have given you an incomplete picture of human capabilities." Captain Lee Hana stepped forward, her expression serious but not threatening. "The Baekdu carries a population of 8 million humans, scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers, families with children. She is completely self-sufficient and could operate independently for centuries if necessary." The alien delegates sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about humanity had just been revealed as a carefully maintained illusion. The small trading ships and modest colonies they had observed were not signs of human limitations. They were evidence of human restraint. Chancellor Veltara finally found her voice. "Why did you hide this from us?" "We didn't hide anything," Kang Wu replied. "You never asked about our larger vessels. When you encountered our trading ships and exploration vessels, you assumed that was all we had. We saw no reason to correct that assumption until now." War Commander Thok leaned forward in his seat. "How many ships like this do you have?" "The Baekdu is the prototype," Captain Lee Hana answered. "But she is not unique." The implications hit the aliens like a physical blow. If the humans had built one ship like this, they could build others. If they were willing to show one ship, how many more were they keeping hidden? Dr. Song Minho's voice came over the communication system from the Baekdu. Admiral, we are detecting increased military activity among the alien fleets. Several ships are powering weapons and raising shields. Understood, Kang Wu replied calmly. Take no action unless directly threatened. Emergency meetings erupted across every alien fleet within hours of the Baekdu's arrival. On the Corvan flagship Bloodfang, War Commander Thok paced back and forth across his command bridge like a caged animal. His senior officers sat around. A tactical display that showed the human ship in perfect detail. Give me options, Thok demanded. Can we destroy it? His weapons officer, a scarred veteran named Graktar, studied the readings for a long time before answering. Our main guns could damage the hull, Commander, but that ship has point defense systems that could stop thousands of missiles simultaneously. And look at these power readings. Their shields could probably absorb our entire fleet's firepower. What about boarding? Asked the security chief. 8 million humans aboard that ship, Graktar replied. Even if we could get past their defenses, we'd be fighting a war against a population larger than most of our colonies. Fox slammed his fist on the display table. The Corvan Dominion had built its reputation on military superiority. They had conquered dozens of species through overwhelming force, but this human ship made their most powerful weapons look like children's toys. There has to be a way, Thok growled. Perhaps, Commander, said his intelligence officer quietly. But not today. Not with the forces we have here. Meanwhile, on the crystalline flagship of the Alterian Empire, Chancellor Veltara worked with her most advanced scientists to analyze the human vessel. Their sensors were among the most sophisticated in the galaxy, capable of detecting individual atoms from light years away, but the Baekdu resisted their scans like it was made of shadow and mystery. The hull material is unknown, reported Chief Scientist Mordan. It appears to be some kind of composite metal that absorbs our scanning beams. We can barely penetrate the outer layers. What about their power source? Veltara asked. Fusion reactors, but not like any we've seen before. The energy output is impossible according to our physics. They seem to have solved problems that our scientists have worked on for centuries. Veltara felt a chill run through her crystalline body. The Alterians prided themselves on technological superiority. Their science had remained unchallenged for 2,000 years. The idea that these young humans had surpassed them was almost unthinkable. Keep scanning, she ordered. There must be something we can learn. But privately, she was beginning to understand that they were no longer the most advanced species in the galaxy. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Choi Rena had set up a temporary diplomatic office to handle the flood of communications from alien governments. She was a calm, experienced diplomat who had negotiated trade agreements with dozens of species, but she had never dealt with anything like this level of panic. Her communication console blinked constantly with incoming messages. Some were requests for information. Others were barely concealed threats. A few were obvious attempts to gather intelligence about human capabilities. Ambassador, said her assistant, Lieutenant Yu Nara. The Vex Collective is requesting an immediate private meeting. They say it's urgent. Put them through, Choi Rena replied. The holographic image of Hive Speaker Vexon appeared in the office. The Vex leader's usual calm had been replaced by something approaching fear. Ambassador Choi, Vexon began, the collective requires clarification. How many vessels like the Baekdu exist? I'm not authorized to discuss specific fleet numbers, Choi Rena replied diplomatically. This is not a negotiation, Vexon pressed. The stability of the galaxy depends on this information. The collective must know what we are dealing with. Choi Rena considered her words carefully. I can tell you that the Baekdu represents standard human colonization technology. We have many ships capable of supporting large populations during long-range missions. The implication was clear, and Vexon understood immediately. The humans had not brought their most powerful ship to impress the aliens. They had brought a normal ship that happened to be bigger than anything the aliens had ever imagined. The collective will need time to process this information, Vexon said, and the communication ended. On the bridge of the Baekdu, Fleet Admiral Yoon Kyung monitored the situation through hundreds of sensor arrays and communication intercepts. The ship's artificial intelligence, called Arirang after the famous Korean folk song, provided constant updates on alien fleet movements and diplomatic communications. "The Corvin Dominion is moving their heavy cruisers into attack formation," Arirang reported in a calm, musical voice. "Probability of hostile action, 37% and rising." "Noted," Admiral Yoon replied. "Continue monitoring. Do not take any action that could be seen as aggressive." "The ethereal fleet is attempting to establish psychic contact," Arirang continued. "They seem to be probing the minds of our crew members. Block them politely. We don't want to seem hostile, but we also don't want them reading our thoughts." Dr. Lim Ji-won, the ship's chief scientist, entered the bridge carrying a datapad full of alien communication intercepts. She was a brilliant woman who had spent her career studying alien technology and culture. "Admiral, I think you should see this," she said, handing him the pad. "The aliens are starting to understand what they're really dealing with." The intercepts painted a picture of growing panic across the alien fleets. Species that had been enemies for millennia were suddenly sharing information, trying to understand the scope of human capabilities. Ancient civilizations were questioning everything they thought they knew about galactic politics. "Some of them are talking about forming an alliance against us," Dr. Lim reported. "They're scared enough to consider working together." "That might actually be a good thing," Admiral Yoon replied. "Fear often leads to wisdom. They're beginning to understand that conflict with humanity would be disastrous for everyone." Captain Oh Sung received new orders from the Baekdu while patrolling the area around Nexus Prime. His destroyer Hala was performing routine security sweeps, but the aliens were watching every move. "Captain," his sensor officer reported, "the Corvin ships are tracking our movements with their weapon systems." "Let them look," Oh Sung replied. "Just make sure our own weapons stay powered down. We're here to protect the diplomatic mission, not start a war." But he knew that if fighting did break out, the aliens were in for another shock. The Hala might look small compared to the Baekdu, but it carried more firepower than most alien capital ships, and there were dozens of similar vessels hidden throughout human space. High Mystic Zephyra floated in her meditation chamber, trying to make sense of what her psychic senses were telling her. The human ship was like nothing she had ever encountered. Instead of the chaotic mental patterns she expected from 8 million individual minds, she found something that resembled a symphony. "They're working together," she whispered to her assistants. "All of them. Scientists, engineers, farmers, children. They're all connected somehow, but they're still individuals." "How is that possible?" asked her deputy, Mystic Toran. "I don't know," Zephyra admitted. "The ethereal race has studied consciousness for 10,000 years, and we've never seen anything like this. They've achieved unity without sacrificing diversity. It should be impossible." She extended her senses further, trying to understand the technology that made such cooperation possible. What she found made her gasp. The humans had developed artificial intelligence that was not just a tool, but a partner in their civilization. The AI called Arirang was not controlling the humans. It was helping them work together more effectively. "They've solved the fundamental problem of civilization," Zephyra realized. "How to coordinate millions of people without losing individual freedom." General Han Min-soo gave a carefully planned tour of the Baekdu's military sections to selected alien observers. The group included military attachés from every major species, all trying to assess human defensive capabilities. "This is our primary shield generator," Han Min-soo explained as they walked through a chamber the size of a cathedral. "It creates a spatial distortion field that can deflect both energy weapons and physical projectiles." The alien observers took notes and asked technical questions, but Han Min-soo could see the growing fear in their eyes. Every system they examined was decades ahead of their own technology. "And this is our point defense network," he continued, leading them to another section. "It can track and eliminate up to 50,000 incoming targets simultaneously." War Commander Thok's representative, Colonel Vrekta, stared at the weapons display in disbelief. 50,000 targets? "That's during normal operations, Han," Min-soo replied casually. "In emergency mode, we can handle about twice that number." The colonel made a note on his datapad, but his hand was shaking slightly. "The Corvin Dominion's most advanced ships could track maybe 100 targets at once." Dr. Song Minho took another group of aliens through the research laboratories. As the ship's head of xenological studies, he was fascinated by their reactions to human science. "This is our materials laboratory," he explained as they entered a room filled with impossible-looking machines. "We can create any substance we need at the molecular level." The Alterian scientist in the group, researcher Killen, examined one of the devices with obvious amazement. "You can manipulate matter at the atomic level?" The revelation spread through the alien fleets like wildfire in dry grass. Every species had spent the last few days trying to understand the true capabilities of the human ship Baekdu. What they discovered challenged everything they thought. They knew about technology, society, and the very nature of civilization itself. Dr. Lim Ji-won stood at the airlock of the Baekdu, greeting the first group of alien scientists who had been invited aboard for guided tours. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, knowing that what the aliens saw today would determine the future of human relations with the galaxy. "Welcome aboard the Baekdu," she said to the mixed group of alien researchers. "I am Dr. Lim Ji-won, chief scientist of this vessel. Today, you will see how humanity approaches the challenges of deep space exploration." The group included some of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy. Professor Dex Era from the Alterian Science Council, whose crystalline brain had solved mathematical problems that had puzzled civilizations for millennia. Research Director Vothak of the Vex Collective, who possessed the combined knowledge of billions of individual minds. Master Scholar Yenthok from the Ethereal Academy, whose psychic abilities could perceive reality in ways that physical instruments could not match. As they walked through the ship's corridors, the aliens were struck by the sheer scale of everything. The hallways were wide enough for ground vehicles to drive through. The ceiling was so high that small aircraft could fly overhead. But what amazed them most was how normal everything seemed. "This corridor serves Residential District 7, Dr. Lim explained as they walked. "About 30,000 people live in this section alone. Children ran past them, laughing and playing games as they headed to school. Adults walked to work or went shopping in stores that lined the corridor. Elderly humans sat on benches reading books or talking with friends. It looked like any human city except it was inside a starship traveling through space." "How do you maintain social order with so many people?" asked Professor Dexera. "The same way any human community maintains order," Dr. Lim replied. "People take care of each other. They follow rules because they understand why the rules exist. They work together because they want their community to succeed." The aliens had trouble understanding this concept. Every other species required strict hierarchies and central control to manage large populations. The idea that millions of people could coordinate their actions voluntarily seemed impossible. Their first stop was the manufacturing district, a vast complex of automated factories that could produce anything the ship needed. Chief Engineer Kim Yuna met them there, wearing work clothes covered in machine oil and metal shavings. "This is Fabrication Bay 12, Kim Yuna explained, leading them past machines that hummed with barely contained energy. "We can manufacture everything from computer chips to starship hulls using molecular assemblers." She picked up a piece of metal from a nearby workbench. "This alloy doesn't exist naturally anywhere in the universe. We designed it specifically for the Baekdu's hull. It's lighter than aluminum but stronger than diamond." Research Director Vothak examined the metal with instruments that emerged from his biomechanical body. The readings made no sense according to Vex scientific knowledge. "The molecular structure is impossible," he announced. "The atomic bonds should not be stable." "They wouldn't be using traditional metallurgy," Kim Yuna agreed. "But we don't use traditional methods. Watch this." She led them to a machine that looked like a crystal box filled with swirling energy. Raw materials went in one end and finished products came out the other. But the process was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. "We manipulate matter at the quantum level," Kim Yuna explained. "Instead of forcing atoms into new configurations, we convince them to adopt the shapes we need. The materials become stronger because they want to be that way." The implications hit the alien scientists like a physical blow. This was not just advanced technology. It was a completely different approach to understanding reality itself. Their next stop was the agricultural section, where Dr. Cho Kyung supervised food production for the ship's 8 million inhabitants. The aliens expected to see traditional farming, but what they found was beyond their imagination. We produce food using controlled biological ecosystems, Dr. Cho explained, as they walked through chambers that looked like alien worlds. Each environment is perfectly balanced to maximize nutrition while minimizing resource consumption. One chamber contained what appeared to be a tropical rainforest, complete with trees, animals, and streams. Another looked like an underwater coral reef, with fish swimming through crystal-clear water. A third resembled an alien desert, with strange plants that had never evolved on any natural world. These ecosystems don't exist in nature, Master Scholar Yenthok observed. Not anymore, Dr. Cho agreed. Some of them are based on environments that existed millions of years ago. Others are completely artificial, designed to produce specific nutrients efficiently. We can create any biological system we need. She showed them plants that grew metal fruits, animals that produced medicines in their milk, and bacteria that converted waste products into useful materials. Every organism had been modified to serve a specific purpose while maintaining its natural behavior patterns. This is applied evolution, Dr. Cho continued. We don't just use life forms that already exist. We design new ones to meet our needs. The alien scientists struggled to process what they were seeing. The humans had not just mastered technology, they had learned to create life itself. General Han Minsu took the military observers through the ship's defensive systems. The group included some of the most experienced warriors in the galaxy, soldiers who had fought in dozens of campaigns across hundreds of worlds. This is our primary weapons control center, Han Minsu announced as they entered a chamber that looked more like a concert hall than a military facility. Banks of computers lined the walls, operated by technicians who looked more like musicians than soldiers. "Where are the weapons?" asked Colonel Vrekta from the Corvan Dominion. "Everywhere," Han Minsu replied simply. "The entire ship is a weapon if we need it to be." He activated a holographic display that showed the Baekdu's weapons systems. Gravitational, lances that could core planets, particle beams that could vaporize asteroids, missile launchers that could deploy thousands of warheads simultaneously, point defense networks that could stop incoming attacks before they got within a light second of the ship. "But these are just the obvious weapons," Han Minsu continued. "The real defensive system is the ship itself." The display changed to show the Baekdu's internal structure. Every system was connected to every other system. If one section was damaged, others could take over its functions. If the ship was attacked, it could reshape itself to minimize damage and maximize effectiveness. "The ship learns from every attack," Han Minsu explained. "If someone finds a way to hurt us, we adapt to prevent it from happening again. The Baekdu becomes stronger every time it faces a threat." The military observers realized they were looking at something that was not just a weapon, but a living weapon that could evolve in response to changing conditions. Dr. Song Minho led the cultural attachés through the ship's research laboratories, where human scientists worked on projects that seemed like magic to alien observers. They watched experiments in time manipulation, dimensional physics, and consciousness transfer. "This is our temporal research facility," Dr. Song explained as they entered a room where time itself seemed to move differently in different areas. "We're studying the nature of causality and temporal mechanics." "You're experimenting with time travel?" asked the ethereal representative, her mental voice filled with disbelief. "Not travel exactly," Dr. Song replied. "But we're learning to manipulate the flow of time in small areas. It has applications for manufacturing, research, and defense." He showed them a machine that could age materials by centuries and seconds, creating substances that would normally take millennia to develop. Another device could slow time around delicate experiments, allowing researchers to observe processes that happen too quickly for normal study. "Time is just another dimension to be manipulated," Dr. Song continued. "Once you understand the underlying mathematics, it becomes as controllable as gravity or electromagnetism." The aliens watched. Human children playing in parks that had been built inside the ship's vast cargo bays. The parks were complete with grass, trees, playgrounds, and artificial skies that showed scenes from Earth. It was beautiful and peaceful, but it also demonstrated something that terrified the alien observers. "These children have never seen a planet," observed the Vex representative. "Many of them were born on this ship," confirmed Dr. Song. "To them, this is normal. They're growing up in a mobile civilization that can travel anywhere in the galaxy." The implications were staggering. The humans were not just building ships, they were creating a spacefaring civilization that could survive independently of any planet. They could spread throughout the galaxy without needing to conquer or colonize worlds. They could simply build more ships and take their entire society with them. Philosopher Nam Eunjung met with the alien leaders in the ship's council chambers. The aftermath of the alien delegates' return to their fleets was like watching a carefully built house of cards collapse in slow motion. Within hours, the political structure that had governed the galaxy for 3 millennia began to crumble. Ancient enemies started talking to each other. Proud civilizations that had never asked for help began reaching out to their neighbors. The balance of power that had kept peace through mutual threat suddenly meant nothing. President An Sora sat in her office on Earth, watching reports from across human space appear on her screens. She was a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes that had seen humanity grow from a single world to a galactic presence. Today, she would address the Galactic Council directly for the first time. "Ma'am," said her aide, Secretary Kim Jong-suk, "the quantum communication link is ready. All council members are standing by." President An nodded and activated the connection. Her image appeared simultaneously in the council chambers of every major alien civilization. She could see their faces on her screen, fear, confusion, and desperate hope all mixed together. "Honored leaders," she began, her voice calm and steady. "I am President An Sora of the United Earth Government. I speak today not just for Earth, but for all human colonies and ships throughout this galaxy." Chancellor Veltara of the Altarian Empire was the first to respond. Her crystal skin flashed with colors that indicated extreme stress. "President An, your people have surprised us. We need to understand your intentions." "Our intentions have not changed," President An replied. "We seek peaceful coexistence with all species. We want to trade, to learn, to contribute to the galactic community. The size of our ships does not change these goals." War Commander Thok's image leaned forward aggressively. "Your ship could destroy entire fleets. How can we trust you?" "Because we chose to build exploration vessels instead of warships," President An answered. "The Baekdu carries 8 million civilians, families, scientists, artists, children. We could have built weapons platforms with the same technology. Instead, we built cities among the stars." High Mystic Zephyra spoke with her mental voice, her form shifting between solid and translucent. "Your restraint has been remarkable, but restraint is a choice. Choices can change." "Indeed they can," President An agreed. "That is why we are having this conversation. We want to ensure that all choices lead toward peace and cooperation, not conflict and destruction." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "We did not seek to intimidate anyone. We sought to ensure that when we spoke of peace, you would understand we speak from a position of choice, not weakness." The alien leaders began to grasp the true scope of humanity's restraint. Every trade negotiation, every territorial dispute, every moment of tension, humanity could have simply taken what they wanted. Instead, they had chosen diplomacy. Hive Speaker Vexon of the Vex Collective spoke with the voice of billions. "The collective requires clarification. How many vessels like the Baekdu exist?" President An smiled slightly. "Enough to protect our people and our interests. Not enough to threaten yours unless you choose to make us enemies." Back on Nexus Prime, Admiral Kang Wu returned to the negotiating table, but the atmosphere had completely changed. The alien delegates, who had been dismissive and condescending, now listened with the attention that came from understanding they were dealing with equals, or perhaps superiors. Chancellor Veltara spoke first, her crystal form flickering with nervous energy. "Admiral, the Altarian Empire wishes to propose a comprehensive technology exchange program. We have scientific knowledge that might interest your people." "We are always interested in learning," Kang Wu replied diplomatically. "What did you have in mind?" "Our crystalline matrix technology, our star mapping databases, our temporal observation methods," Veltara listed quickly. "In exchange for insights into your manufacturing techniques." Dr. Park Soo leaned forward with genuine interest. "Your temporal observation systems could help us understand historical development patterns across different species. That would be very valuable for our xenological research. The aliens were beginning to realize that humanity was genuinely interested in cooperation, not domination. The humans asked questions about alien culture and science with the curiosity of students, not the demands of conquerors. War Commander Thok, his pride wounded but his survival instincts intact, made his own offer. The Corvan Dominion controls the best natural hyperspace routes in the galaxy. We could provide safe passage for human vessels in exchange for defensive technology consultations. Captain Lee Hanna considered this carefully. Safe passage is valuable to us. Our exploration ships sometimes encounter hostile forces in unknown regions. What kind of defensive consultations did you have in mind? Our ships are strong but slow, Thok admitted reluctantly. Your technology could help us improve our mobility without sacrificing armor. It was a complete reversal from his earlier aggressive stance. The Corvan military machine was asking for help from the species they had planned to intimidate. High Mystic Zephyra floated above her seat, her ethereal form shimmering with possibilities. The Ethereal Collective offers to share our psychic, research and consciousness studies. Your ability to coordinate millions of minds while maintaining individual identity is unprecedented. We would be honored to learn from your experience, Dr. Park Soo replied. Our coordination systems are still evolving. Ancient wisdom could help us avoid dangerous mistakes. Even the Vex Collective, with their proud collective intelligence, sought partnership. The Vex offer computational resources and data processing capabilities. Our combined knowledge of biological systems could accelerate your life sciences research. One by one, the alien civilizations offered their most precious knowledge and resources in exchange for human friendship and protection. It was not conquest through force, but transformation through demonstration. Captain Lee Hanna worked with alien military observers to establish new protocols for space traffic control. The presence of ships the size of small moons required completely new approaches to navigation and safety. We propose creating dedicated shipping lanes for large vessels, she explained to the mixed group of alien officers. Ships over a certain size would need to file flight plans and coordinate with traffic control to avoid accidents. Colonel Recta from the Corvan Dominion studied the proposed routes. These lanes would pass through territory controlled by multiple species. How do we ensure security? Joint patrols, suggested Commander Jin Tae, who had joined the discussion via communication link from the Baekdu. Each species provides ships for patrol duty in their own territory, but follows common protocols and shares information. It was a revolutionary concept, former enemies working together to ensure the safety of shipping and travel. But the alternative was chaos as more human ships entered regular service. Dr. Song Minho found himself overwhelmed with requests for cultural exchange programs. Alien species that had barely acknowledged each other's existence suddenly wanted to understand human society and learn from human methods. The key to our success, he explained to a group of alien sociologists, is that we never try to force people to cooperate. We create systems that make cooperation beneficial and make conflict expensive. But how do you maintain unity across such vast distances? Asked a researcher from the Ethereal Academy. We don't maintain unity, Dr. Song replied. We maintain connection. Every human community is free to develop its own culture and customs, as long as they don't harm others. Diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. The aliens struggled to understand this concept. Most species achieved coordination through control and hierarchy. The idea that diversity could create strength rather than weakness challenged their fundamental assumptions about civilization. As weeks passed, the great ship Baekdu became a symbol of the new galactic order, its massive bulk hanging peacefully in space near Nexus Prime reminded everyone that the old rules no longer applied. Trade agreements were renegotiated with human interests in mind. Territorial disputes were resolved with human mediation. Scientific research projects included human participants as equals rather than junior partners. But the most significant change was psychological. The aliens had spent centuries believing that they understood the limits of what was possible. The appearance of the Baekdu had shattered those assumptions. If humans could build ships like mobile cities, what else might be possible? If they could coordinate millions of people without losing individual freedom, what other problems might have solutions that no one had imagined? Commander Jin Tae received final departure orders as the diplomatic mission concluded. The Baekdu had accomplished more than anyone had hoped. Instead of grudging acceptance, humanity had achieved genuine partnership with the major galactic civilizations. All stations report ready for departure, announced Lieutenant Nam Sori from the navigation station. Inform Nexus Prime that we are beginning our departure sequence, Jin Tae ordered. Thank them for their hospitality and confirm our return schedule for the next diplomatic conference. Chief Engineer Kim Yuna monitored the massive engines as they came online. The fusion reactors that could power planets began the process of opening a hyperspace gateway large enough for the 15-kilometer ship to pass through.